So this is part 2 of a series that I'm doing with HRelease of VHelp, which is a program that I'm doing for helping VTubers. In this series, I'm rambling over ridiculous problems I had in the current release and upload time of this video. Not every problem though, just the ridiculous ones. If you watched the previous video of this series, I have said this. But one feature is almost pre-made, so I don't need to implement it completely. I just half implement. In addition, I said half implement and show the virtual keyboard documentation. It's because the UI framework that I'm using for this project, Qt, already have included that, and it was the documentation of that from the freaking framework. I had planned to complete this version by at maximum 2 months, because 1 month was just the UI overhaul to make it organized and acceptable, bug fixes of previous release that some people reached to me and made me aware, or I just happened to run into them. Also enhancing some features. 1 month was implementing new features, which 3 would not be that much. One is OBS plugin, which is essentially programming a complete new program with basic features and capabilities to communicate with VHelp. The other was Virtual Stream Deck, which got completed in 1 week. And then there was Virtual Keyboard, which since it is already implemented into UI by the framework, I just need to tell the framework, hey, include this into this project and attach its engine to my shortcut handling engine. Or so do I thought. You see, Qt has this very consistent way of describing every part that have been implemented into it, that they provide example code for each implemented feature. They describe how each module works, and then for each of the objects of the module, they provide an additional documentation that describes what each function of that object exactly does. And all of it is the most clear way possible that you can understand, so when you read the documentation, you can use the framework properly. Keep this documentation design, I will get back to it. Now Qt at some point decided to introduce their own UI programming language called QML. QML is supposed to easify UI programming of it. On C++ or C# side, you just drop, hey, I'm programming QML. You can get the QML files from here, and then in your QML file, you describe your UI in the most unga-bunga way possible. Like, hey, draw a rectangle here and add a button on top of it and attach this button to this function kind of way. It works for some specific programs like some EVs that use Qt. This QML style of programming works incredibly well. But for programs like VHelp, which is mainly designed with C++ and not QML, hitting it would ruin so many parts of program, and it's just ridiculous work. So now that you have basic idea of QML, I can go back to that documentation design. So if I go into Qt Virtual Keyboard module documentation and go into deployment guide, because we are deploying it into VHelp, we see there is 2 ways we can integrate it. First is desktop type, which is C++. Then there is application type, which is in QML. So sliding further, we see, okay, if the program is in QML, I need to put this code in the top of the QML file, or if it's C++, before running the UI, I need to run this code. Great, now the virtual keyboard is implemented and I need to only guide its engine to send the keys to my shortcut handling engine. Why is it taking half of the space of my monitor? Why when I click on every single text bar, it just pops out? It needs to be in window and be in demand of the user. Let's take a deep breath. Maybe I missed something in the deployment documentation. Nope, there's nothing about this behavior. Okay, let's check their example code. Wait, after setting it in C++, they gone to QML and define the text box and an input method? What the hell is input method? By the way, they said there is no need for QML file in C++. What the hell? Being lost in the documentation for hours, I noticed input method in the UI implementation of it in QML. It's very broad and weird naming, but okay. So theoretically, if I define a QML window-based object, put input method inside QML and make a button for triggering the window, I'd make at least the visual part of it correct until I get to why it's getting triggered on each text box. Why it's still taking half of the monitor? The window is not even triggered yet. What is happening? Oh wait, I click on the trigger button. It's starting to work correctly, meaning implementation of it on the back of the framework somehow describes a window without closing and location handle. So when I trigger the QML show up, it transfers the current content of that video to this window. Okay, I don't have the nerve to deal with it currently, so I just comment out this line and continue the implementation of other parts. And I will get back to this part again. Wait, what happens if I click on the trigger window? What the hell? Why the keyboard is showing that? Oh, what? So from the beginning, just calling the input level in QML was enough? Then why the hell they have in the documentation multiple times that I need to put this line of code? Okay, let's just forget everything. Just Google how to use it. Nobody have cracked it down how this module completely works? What? You know what? At the moment, we got the window right. So let's just focus on the buttons. Obviously, if we're going to use it as a replacement for the second keyboard, we don't need this hide key, this emoji key, this symbol key, and this language key. Okay, how to hide a key? So let's go into the overview of documentation and see how does everything works. Custom layout, I don't need to introduce a new language in it. I just need to hide a couple of keys. There we go. Custom style. Why I read it but sounds like gibberish. Listen to this. The selection of the runtime stop is affected by any environment variable qt underscore virtual keyboard underscore style, which can be set to the name of the built-in style or any of the custom styles installed into the style directory. And they gave us an address, and the only thing about this address exists in Qt is their source code. But at least we know after however the hell we define the style, we need to feed it its address into qt underscore virtual keyboard underscore style variable that Qt listens to for custom styles. Let's move on to add custom styles. The process of creating a new style begins by creating a new subdirectory for the style in a QML import path under the URL based directory structure qt quick dash virtual keyboard dash styles dash. Seek a QML import path for information about QML import paths. That link just goes on how import assets into QML file works. The directory name cannot contain spaces or special characters other than underscore. Also, the directory name cannot be the same as one of the built-in styles, which currently includes default and intro. A good starting point for creating new style is to use an existing built-in style as a template and edit it. You can find the built-in styles from the virtual keyboard sources directory source-styles-built-in. Copy one of the directories containing a built-in style into a styles directory and rename it to test. Did you understood any of it? Good, because I didn't neither. Only thing that I got is that I need to copy a style files from a place in Qt source file that is not existent and edit those files. To introduce those files, you need to set a qt-virtual keyboard-style to the address of the files, but which file is the main? Qt has a free type of internal file system, for God's sake. One is just C++ addressing, the other is OS file addressing, and the third one is a resource file. In which file I should include those files? Hell, the address I need to copy the files from is not existent. Okay, let's Google this as well, see what we find. Most of people didn't understand what the hell they should do in this part as well, and those who understood are linking back to this unhelpful documentation. Luckily, I found a Chinese GitHub repository, because of course a Chinese would figure it out, that they executed a custom style in their code. By copying them, I managed to implement their custom style into vhelp's virtual keyboard. I just need to find out where source file exists. By checking a long time search through patterns of files structured in the source code of Qt, I managed to figure out those inbuilt styles that they were talking about, and they were existing under this this source file address and not this address. Love it when the documentation is just wrong. Okay, all I need now is just to search through this main file, find those keys, and set their visibility to hidden. That was easy enough. Wait, usually Qt fills the hidden object places. Here it have not been filled. Forget it. Probably they're using spacers and index-based placing so the keys would not go crazy when key gets hidden. I wonder what happens if I click here. So now it's telling me the keys are not out of access and they are just out of visibility, like being transparent. How the hell I should delete these keys? Oh, we need a custom layout. Now the custom layout documentation. Custom layouts are located in the file system so that they can be installed without recompiling the virtual keyboard itself, or they can be located in a resource file. The selection of layouts at runtime is affected by the Qt_virtual keyboard _layout_path environment variable. In case the environment variable is not set or contains an invalid directory, the virtual keyboard falls back to the default built-in layout. That's it. That's the only thing inside the documentation for custom layout. And even this was very vague. Fine. I Google it again. This time even less people have figured it out. What? So there is a couple of outdated guides by those who understood it, and again, someone else's GitHub repository saves the day. Okay, since we're only going to have one language in it, this fallback files is not important. You just make an English one and edit changes you want. What? Why the whole keyboard broke? So after a lot of fucking around and finding out, I figured out those fallback files is essential. Basically, it first reads the default folder for some reason, then there is language folders that tells it whether to fall back to default or change layout for this specific language. That's a stupid design for this module, but whatever. Okay, now that we have corrected the key situation, how about when user wants to resize it? What? So the QML implementation of it is correct, but somehow QML implementation of it inside of C++ just doesn't work correctly on resizing? Okay, let's set up the resizing policy to the window and make our completely made up formula in order for people to be able to resize with respecting the aspect ratio of the keyboard. Seriously? How does such a thing even happen? Okay, fine. Let's delete the policy. Remember the way we kept the window aspect ratio? Let's repeat the same thing on C++ side to apply the repetition of it on QML. Finally, I got the visuals right. Wait, what's that? Oh, mother. I don't have the nerve to deal with it now. I deal with it later, in future versions. It is all fine after all. So now, time to attach it to my shortcut handling engine. Let's go back into documentation. See how can I create engine for this thing. Definitely creating a custom engine for this thing counts as advanced use. Oh, there we go. Q virtual keyboard input engine. Definitely what I wanted. Okay, it provides context, and I need to attach the context to the UI and output of the engine to my shortcut engine. So let's see how I should interact with context object. There's a general description for it on what it includes and how it works. Let's go to overview of Qt virtual keyboard. Surely they have a brief description of it. There you go. Wait, we cannot create or interact with it? What's the point even? Why you would give us access to a programming object that we cannot interact with? Let's Google to see if someone have figured this part as well. Oh, it's just a QML keyboard. So I just make a signal in the QML that it signals the key from QML to C++ and another signal that the C++ side of virtual keyboard signals the key to the engine, and I just need to define a handling for this signal on the shortcut engine side. I finally finished this thing. How much it passed? 6 months! And someone had figured out how to do all of these things in C++ only like 6 years ago?